episode of our book club series. I'm so excited, mainly because I'm super into this book. So today we're going to be discussing readings 2 and 3, and it's just going to be discussion. I'm not going to be reading it all. This is just going to be a discussion video for us to talk about all the drama and all the heartache and our feelings and our thoughts and like our predictions and things like that. So I'm really excited about it. Maybe if I turn music on in here, I won't have to put it to the video because that's exhausting sometimes. I'm gonna turn some music on in the background so that I don't have to add it later. 2, I believe we did from page 10 to page 17 for reading 2, and then for reading 3, we're gonna be doing page 17 to page 36. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with my thoughts and just like the notes that I took and some things that I observed and thought were interesting. All right, let's see. In the first reading, there wasn't as much in the first reading. There's a lot that goes down in the second, in the second reading, there's not that much that goes down. In the third reading, there's a lot more that happens than there is in the second reading. So I'm just gonna read some of the highlights of the second, and then we're gonna probably just move on to the third and talk about that like the entire time. So, is that music too loud? I think it's okay. All right, let me go back. So something that is like reoccurring that I've been noticing is Augusta, Chris's mom, who is the one. So Chris is the boy in the relationship and he's still alive. If you haven't been following along, then you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But Chris is still alive, and his mom, Augusta, who is called Gus, is in complete disbelief that her son would ever be suicidal, like ever. Like she just can't fathom that. Hold on, I'm gonna turn it down because I feel like I'm yelling. I don't like this music either. Hold on. Okay. Anyways, so Gus is in complete denial about her son Chris and him being suicidal. Just the thought of him being suicidal. I think she just feels like she doesn't even know him. Like the son that she thought she knew isn't who he thought he was, or isn't who she thought he was. Let's see. I'm gonna put this back over here. In reading 2, we find out that Emily is dead, and Emily is the girlfriend in this situation. And we don't know exactly what happened to her. We learn, I'm gonna wait until, let me see. So at this point, we don't know anything about how she died. We just know that she was shot, whether that was by her, by someone else, we have no idea. All we know is that she was shot. Both of the kids are in the hospital. Well, both of the kids are taken to the hospital. Chris is still alive, but in critical condition. Emily is dead, but we don't know what happened or how. We just know that she was shot by somebody. Michael is thinking in his head. Michael is talking to the doctor, and he's like, thinking in his head, how can my daughter be dead if he's alive? And he's like, I feel like there's this tension starting to build up, if that makes sense. Like, because it doesn't say that he says this out loud, but it says that in his thoughts he's thinking about Chris, who is the other kid in this scenario, who is Gus's and James's kid. But he's thinking about Chris, well, how can she be dead if he's alive? And that's like internally what's going on in Michael's mind, who is the dad of Emily and the husband of Melanie. God. Let's see. So they're basically in denial that Emily's dead, but the dad goes and confirms that it's her. Like he, when they go identify the body, well, the dad goes and does that, and it's confirmed she is dead. Let's see. And here's another thing that Emily's dead to Gus. The beginning of friendship loss. Assumed it was a bad neighborhood. Just because there was a gun. James doesn't cry. Gus didn't feel comfortable crying around her husband. Okay. Something that I did notice was, I don't remember which couple said this, but both of them kind of seem similar in this way, where they they just assumed that the kids were in a bad neighborhood because there was a gun involved. Even though we have no idea yet about anything or where they were at or any details, the parents just assumed, I think it's Gus and James. I think James is the one that assumed, but I'm not positive. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he assumes that they were in a bad, like, and he actually tells Gus that. And he's like, well, I just assumed, because there was a gun involved, that they were in a bad neighborhood. And I feel like that's just revealing to us a little bit about the way that they think. Maybe just like giving us like a peek behind the curtain of like what is to come about what really went down and, you know, behind the scenes. So I put Melanie seems judgy, question mark. I don't know why I put that. Oh, I think all of them kind of seem just like a little bit, how do I say this? Self-righteous maybe? Just a little bit. I'm sensing that in this as we build up and we learn more details about these couples. Oh, I wrote Melanie seems judgy because she immediately assumed that the person on the phone was a housekeeper or a nanny. And she like didn't want to talk to the help, which I thought was, I mean, again, it just kind of, I feel like it's providing us, it's like building the foundation for the background of what we're about to find out about all these people and what goes on at their houses. Hold on. I gotta skip this. So we jump back in time at the end of the reading 2, and we find out that Melanie becomes a librarian once they very first move to Bainbridge, Ohio. Or no, that's not right. Bainbridge. Hold on. Whatever. I'm just going to say Bainbridge, wherever the fuck that's at. So we find out that Melanie becomes a librarian years ago when they first moved to Bainbridge. And that's about it for reading number 2. We're going to move on to reading number 3, which I believe began at page 17 and goes until, dang it, did I lose my page again? 37, I think it was. Yeah, okay. So we're going from page 17 to page 37 now. And I'm just going to, again, touch on some things that caught my attention. Gives us the backstory on Gus and, oh my gosh, on Gus and Melanie's friendship, like how they talk on the phone every day, how they immediately became really good friends, how they get to the point where they finish each other's sentences, they hang out every single day, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just, like, basically family. What else did I put? They talk on the phone every morning. Their personalities complement each other. Basically, it's just going on and on about it. And this I thought was interesting. Gus knew, before Melanie said anything, Gus knew that she was pregnant. I thought that was interesting because usually you don't ask somebody if you don't know if they're pregnant or not. Like, because apparently Melanie states that she wasn't showing yet. What's with this damn music today? Hold on. Okay, so basically, in the beginning of reading 3, we just learn a lot about the background of Gus and Melanie's friendship and how they're very close, very, very close. Gus knew Melanie was pregnant before she even told her. Like, their friendship is just that intuitive. Let's see. So I'm going to move on. So there's this conversation between Michael and James where Michael basically says that he likes pregnancy and he wants to learn as much about it as he can. Like, he's interested in pregnancy and he's super attracted to his wife Melanie while she's pregnant, even though she's like ashamed of her body. And then James, on the other hand, doesn't care about pregnancy or birth or anything. I'm gonna have to put Spotify on. Anyways. Okay, so it's a little awkward between the men when they first meet. Basically, Michael is super into the pregnancy. James is the complete opposite, wants nothing to do with pregnancy, doesn't like birth. I almost get like this misogynistic feel from James a little bit. And I feel like we're going to learn about that more later on as the story goes on, because he makes a comment about a woman giving birth and says, let's see. He makes comments about birth like women yell at you during birth, and then he made a comment about placenta too, which I won't, like, you can go back and listen to the reading if you want, but yeah, I don't know, just the fact that he would insult birth like that, which is like what brings life, I feel like that tells us, at least, is like supposed to give us a hint into how this man actually is, because it also mentions that while they're all hanging out at like one of their first meetings as friends, Gus comes in. She's pregnant. She's 5 months pregnant, and Gus comes in with a plate of cheese, and she sits down on the chair, like arm, the arm of the chair that her husband is sitting on. And he reaches, it specifically states that he does not touch her, and he reaches over her to get to the cheese. And it says that. And then he's also over here like insulting women giving birth because they're yelling because they're in pain. And then also like again makes a comment about placenta, which is like, how old are you? You know, I mean, I can understand if this guy was like a 7-year-old kid, but like this is an adult, like married man. He's a doctor, for God's sakes, and he's over here insulting birth. So anyways, that one really like, I feel like that was something that extra super stuck out to me about James. And it kind of reveals, I don't know, for me, I'm starting to understand the way that this story is maybe gonna play out. All right, so in reading 3, moving on, Melanie gives birth. So Gus and Melanie both end up giving birth. Gus is like 5 months earlier than Melanie. Well, Melanie ends up giving birth. So we've got Emily and Chris, little babies that come along. Let's see. They're all at the hospital together. So Melanie's husband actually isn't there during the birth. He was like taking care of an animal somewhere. So Gus, her best friend, is the one that ends up helping her give birth and is there for her during the birth. And then everybody shows up. The men finally show up and bring champagne, and there's cheers to the babies, and everything's happy. Yeah, I'm just like constantly getting these little hints about James and Michael and like the differences in their personalities. Because like here it says that Michael specifically looks over to his wife and asks her, what's her name? And, you know, she says it's Emily. But, like, I don't know, the way that it goes about, like, talking about Michael, it seems to me, y'all can let me know your thoughts on this if you have conflicting views, but it seems to me like Michael is much more sensitive, and he cares a lot more about his wife than James does. James seems very cold and just all about appearances. More so, like, he wants the wife and the kids so that other people can see his wife and his kids and his life and all of those things. But Michael, in my opinion, seems like actually a genuine husband who does love his wife. He's not perfect. Obviously, he didn't make it to the birth, which sucks. But, like, that's what I'm gathering from all of these things. Let's see. Anne-Marie is the detective. So we're switching back. We're switching gears. Okay, we're back to now. So that was in the past. We're back to now. And, Chris wakes up. Something that I noticed. This is just a discussion. I'm not going to go over everything that happened. Like, if you want to know everything that happened, you can go back and listen to readings 1 through 3, or you can get the book yourself and follow along. Totally up to you how you want to do it. But this again is just going to be a discussion about the highlights of the different readings and things that I noticed and things. Something that really caught my attention was how unhappy Chris was when he woke up. Okay, how do I say this? Let me word this differently. He was not happy to see his parents at all. Like, he didn't want anything to do with them. His first question was, where's Emily? And he wanted to know what happened to Emily. Where's Emily? And then on top of that, he tells his parents to go away. Like, to me, if you're in the hospital and you're a teenage kid and you've just gone through a very traumatic experience and your parents show up, for you to not want them near you, for you to be upset with them and like not be excited to see them at all, in fact be the complete opposite of that, you don't want them near you, to me that says a lot. Like, I feel like that's a huge like giveaway of what's to come, like what we're gonna learn about this family and the things that happen. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, just something that I took note of and something that I thought was interesting was just how unhappy Chris was to see his parents when he woke up in the hospital. That's saying something. And another thing too, his mom like pulls the pillow off of his head. He's like trying to hide his head or whatever because he's like not in a good mood and he's in the hospital and he's fucking in pain and his mom just pulls the pillow off of his head. Rude. Let the boy be. Anyways, that would get on my nerves too. I'd be telling her to go away too. Doesn't know. Okay, and so here we go. We're back to Gus thinking in her head that for her son to be suicidal is simply not possible. She goes back and she's like, well, the other alternative is even worse. So she's just like, it's either he's suicidal or he shot her. Like, so she's not happy about either of these, and she just simply can't believe it. That she's just upset, and she feels like she didn't even know her son. Like, who is this kid that she thought that she knew? Okay, another thing it states is that after the death of Emily, another thing I thought was like, just revealing about Michael and his personality. It says that he won't leave Melanie's side until she falls asleep that night because he doesn't want her out of, being in this horrible place of trauma and depression because she just lost her daughter. He doesn't want her to take her own life. So he doesn't leave her side that night until he sees her like asleep. Which I thought, I don't feel like if this couple were James and Gus, I don't feel like that would be the case. So I feel like that's just another revealing factor about Michael and the type of person he is versus James and the type of person that he is. I thought just should be touched on that I guess I just appreciate, and I feel like maybe more awareness needs to be brought to it. But it talks about how Melanie, in her mind, someone says to her, like they apologize to her for her loss, and her quote is like, she's like upset at this. In her mind, she's thinking, loss, you don't lose a child. It's a catastrophe. It's a complete hell. A purse. You lose a phone. She said, but a child is the worst possible thing that could happen to you. And I don't know. I think it just kind of like, I was like, I never thought of it that way, but I was just like, yeah, because I've lost a parent, so I get it. I totally get it. It's a complete hell. It's a fucking catastrophe, and it's terrible. It's not just a loss. So I thought that was interesting as well. The best is not going to make Emily any less dead. Oof. So, a comment that Emily's mom makes, Melanie says, because they're talking about like funeral arrangements, and the dad, Michael, is like, the best of everything. We don't care the price. We want the best of everything. And Melanie makes the comment, the best is not going to make Emily any less dead. It was that he was making decisions at all. Oh, and another thing I want to talk about that I don't understand. So Michael, the husband, after Emily's dead or whatever, I think he starts trying to take care of the funeral arrangements and everything so that Melanie doesn't have to, right? Because she's just like in shock and she's just not really there at the moment. And so Michael's just kind of behind the scenes trying to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of for the funeral. So he picks out the clothing that they were going to dress Emily in for her funeral. Melanie freaks out because, I guess I don't really need to tell the story, but when Melanie freaks out because, oh my God, why can I not think today? So Melanie freaks out after she finds out that he does this, because I guess he picked out very old clothes, shoes that didn't even fit her anymore, things that she would have not worn like ever in any things that she just would have not worn. And so of course her mom is like, this is our last chance to prove that we knew her. You can't dress her in this. And she kind of like freaks out. But at the very end of like that section, it says that Melanie wasn't upset that he was making decisions. She was upset, Melanie wasn't upset that he was making all the wrong decisions. It was that he was making decisions at all. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, so is she the controlling one in this marriage? Because it says, Literally, it says at the very end of that section, it says, she's not upset at that he's making all the wrong choices. It's that he's making choices at all. So that makes me think maybe she's the decision maker in the marriage and she's not used to, what happened to my light here? Anyways, that makes me think maybe she's the decision maker in the marriage and she's just like, I don't know, maybe she's a little thrown off by him making all the decisions or something. So that's something I took note of and I just thought, weird. So also, maybe he's the type of husband who's like, doesn't want confrontation or like doesn't like any kind of, I don't know, but just kind of avoids anything. When things go wrong, he just kind of avoids, maybe he's that type of husband. And so like him stepping up is a surprise to her. I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure we'll find out. I'm curious about that though. That was interesting to me. Okay, and so we're back at the hospital, and, no, we're not back at the hospital, so, something the detective says to Michael, who is Emily's dad, who is dead, y'all know when the detective was like, she hit the belt, this detective has got some balls, because, like, she says to... So Michael is defending Chris, who is not his son, but who was her... Oh my God. Michael defends Chris. I'm not going to say who's who, because if y'all are reading the book, y'all know the names. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you need to follow along. It is what it is. So anyways, so Michael is sticking up for Chris when Anne Marie Marone, who is the detective, is like talking to him about Chris and saying that he's a suspect, basically, because he's the only other person that was there and he's alive and Emily's not. So Michael's sticking up for Chris and he's like, I knew him well. He says, if Chris says that she shot herself, then I believe him. I know Chris well, or I believe him. I know him well, is what he says to the detective. And then she goes, as well as you knew your daughter. Or she goes, as well as you knew your daughter. And I'm just like, I was like blown away by that comment, because it takes some balls to say that to somebody who just lost a kid. I mean, she's got a point. Which also makes me wonder again, which goes back to the whole, does he just avoid confrontation? Does he avoid the family when things get hard? Because if that were not the case, then he probably would have known his daughter better, right? So that was like, I was just like, ooh, that's a shot to the heart. Okay, so they're gonna give Emily an autopsy. Melanie is just like slowly like going into this like turtle shell of a person where she's just like, this anger is like slowly building up. And it's just kind of like, it says at the end of this section, it says that she's unforgiving. That's what it calls her. Let's see. Oh. So, the doctors at the hospital want to send Chris to a psychiatric ward to be monitored. Obviously, he needs help. And his dad, James, is only worried about what everyone is going to think about it, his reputation, his future, the school. Will he still get into school? Will he still be able to do this? Will he still be able to do that? Gus, his mom, wants Chris to get help, obviously, because she feels like there were signs that she should have seen that she didn't. I do feel like Gus is a good mom, honestly. Like, I feel like what I'm gathering is that, well, I don't know. I feel like Gus actually cares about Chris's well-being, and James is more worried about Chris's reputation than Chris at all. That's what it seems to me. So y'all know when they all get back from the hospital and then Gus goes over to Melanie's house, I thought it was interesting that like Gus almost assumes that their friendship is still exactly the same. Like Gus assumes that she knows what Melanie's thinking. Like at one point she's like, it's like this internal dialogue of Gus, and she's like, basically says that she knows that her and Melanie are thinking the exact same thing, when in reality Melanie is over here getting more and more like resentful of Chris, their son. Because at the very end of what we last read, I put, Gus assumes that she knows what Melanie is thinking. However, Melanie states, what I know about Michael is that he's alive at the very end. Because Gus is like, you know, Michael loved her. And Melanie's like, what I know about Michael is that he's alive. And that's where we ended. So I just thought it was interesting. Again, I think it just goes back to the personality thing where Gus is very dominant in her personality. Like, she just comes over and she just goes up into their house, like, and then just assumes that everything is still the same. But again, that's her best friend. So I do get that. I think it is insensitive, though, to assume that somebody is thinking the same things that you are, especially when they've lost a child and you haven't. So I do feel like that was a little insensitive. But then again, Gus is also just trying to be a good friend. Like, she's also just trying to be there for her friend. Like, she doesn't want to lose her friend. And I get the feeling that Melanie could care less right now. But yeah, those are the notes that I took. So when we pick back up in the reading, we'll be picking up on page 36 where it says, then, summer 1984. And I'm really excited. I'm super into this book. I hope that you guys are enjoying it. I hope that you're enjoying the discussion. I want to know your thoughts, please. I want to know if you have different thoughts than me. I want to know if you have thoughts that I hadn't considered. I definitely just want to, I don't know. I just want to turn this into a discussion. I want this to be very open. And I feel like we can all learn a lot just from discussing these types of things, like in real life, reality, you know, this type of stuff. It happens, and it's hard. And so I just feel like discussing these things, we can all get better and learn from this. So, yeah, I hope to see you again, and I'm so glad that you hung out with me today. And Mr. Sloth is so glad that you hung out with us today. And don't forget to speak up. I actually did not plan that. I know y'all aren't going to believe me, but I did not plan that. But yeah, I love you guys so much, and thank you for hanging out with me today. Don't forget to hit me up in the DMs, or I don't know if you can comment on YouTube videos anymore, because every time I try, I can't figure out how. So if you can comment. If you can't, find me on Instagram.
How y'all feel out there? I'm light years, call me eons. When the snare kick in, the beat is neon. Lights, yeah, I'm feeling magnificent. Care less what I'm up against.